I am thrilled to present Entech's, I think it's our 7th roundtable. And thank you to Steve Wagner for coming up with this phenomenal graphic. So wish we knew this before we started. And this is for rehabs of wastewater storage tanks. And I always like to start by introducing my panel. So I'll start with myself. Many of you know me. I'm Christine Gunsaullus. I am storage tank queen here at Entech Engineering and senior project manager. But also have 27 years of experience with water and wastewater tanks. Next on my panel, my colleague Matt Boggs, also with Entech. He's a project manager. He has 22 years of experience in wastewater engineering. Next two gentlemen, they personify Entech's longtime focus on operators and making sure that all the work we do is operator based and works for the guys in the field. So we've got Dale Miller. He's been with Entech for 3 years. He's an operations specialist, but also has 27 years of operations experience. And also H. David Miller. He's a senior project manager here at Entech with 43 years of operations experience. He explained he started when he was 4 years old. So solid guy. We've got lots of friends in the industry. So the first person I reached out to was Mark Bubel. He is a senior project engineer with Aqua, Pennsylvania. I have loved working with him and his wastewater tanks and learning as much as I can from him. So he has 40 years of experience. And then my go-to guys when it comes to tank rehabs, tank repairs, we've got Dan Goldhahn. He's a project engineer with IK Stoltzfus. They're a painting and rehab contractor focusing on tanks. And Joe Pappo, he's the technical services manager with DN Tanks. And if you're not familiar with DN Tanks, I'm hoping you are by now because it's been, what, 10 years since you got since DYK merged with NatGun. Am I right about that?
You are right.
Yeah, and actually, like talking to Frank Houston, he's like, yeah, some people still don't realize who we are, that we've been around a long time. So moving forward, one thing we always like to do as panelists is know our audience. So I'm going to throw a poll out there to the audience and get a sense of what your experience is. So I'll launch this poll. There is 4 different options there. And the question is, what is your experience with wastewater tank rehabs? So either never done one, you've done a few, you completed a bunch of them, but you just want some tips. Or this is one of my favorites. I should totally be on your panel. And if in that case, I always think, I really wish you had reached out to me because I'd let you on the panel. We're always looking for experienced people to join in. So give you a few more seconds to answer that for us. And this just really gives us as panelists a sense of what sort of depth we can go into with our responses to the questions. So another second and I'm going to end the polling. Okay, ending, and we'll share the results so you can all see. Okay, so it looks like we've got 47% of the people, they've done a few wastewater tank rehabs. Oh, good. There are 3 people who think they should totally be on our panel. I'm guessing Rob Horvat is one of them. Rob's been on a bunch of panels already, so I don't like to, ask for too much. I like to open it up to other experiences. Okay, this really helps us. So it looks like actually vast majority never done one or just done a few of them. So that's good to know. If there's acronyms that we're talking about, we'll definitely want to spell out what they stand for and that sort of thing. Okay, so that poll definitely helped us know where to get started here. And one thing I need to do, let's see. We like to have fun with our talks, have fun, be engaging, that sort of thing. So with this one, I thought it was really important to start it off with a good question to our people on the panel. And that is, if you had a crystal ball, what do you wish you had known before you started your tank rehab? What would have been the most helpful thing? Okay, yes, Dale.
When is this thing gonna be done? That was the question that I think a lot of people want to know.
Roundtable.
Does that seem to come up over and over and over and over? Like every job is that way?
Absolutely, because people want to know when they can get it back in service and get down the road. So, but it's definitely a moving target, as we all know. But there's no way that you can say, okay, we're starting January, on February 15th, we're going to be done. Because I guarantee you won't be done till March 15th or maybe April. But like I said, if you could only know when it would be finished, and that's a large, huge question.
I love that answer. Oh my God, because that would be phenomenal. Mark.
I guess the one question I guess would be, or the one issue, is like not knowing. I mean, when you do an evaluation, with a professional tank inspection company, a very reputable tank inspection company that basically lets you know the condition of the tank, that actually you don't really know the condition of the tank until the tank gets completely sandblasted and you see with all the paint off, none of that paint hiding anything, the actual condition of the tank.
Mm-hmm.
And it has surprised us in recent times in the work that we've been doing, that Dale's well aware of as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know, Mark, you've been doing this for quite a while. So has that been an issue in your past life or past experience, or just recently been coming up?
I think it probably has to do. I mean, I've done, it hasn't been like an inordinate amount of tank rehabs that I've done, to be clear, but that it's happened, at times in the past, but in the present time, I was just a little bit surprised. I mean, of course, the tanks that are normally full of water, like a treatment process tank, and to be clear, I'm speaking of steel tanks here. It really probably doesn't apply as much to concrete tanks, but of course, that area of a steel tank that's above the water line, like pretty much all the time, that area might suffer corrosion and rusting and whatnot, whereas a tank like a sludge holding tank or a flow equalization tank, or in the case of if you have a sequencing a batch to reactor, decant equalization tank, if you have that kind of a tank with a fluctuating water surface, it seems like they're more prevalent to corrosion.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's hard to say. I mean, this experience as of late was a bit surprising.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot more rehab and patch plating than I think I've ever experienced on another tank rehab project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that's something Dan and I were talking about out at the job site yesterday. It's really similar to on the water side with water tanks, and Aqua, Pennsylvania has seen this on many of their tanks. If you've got a tank roof with framing up in it,
right,
until you blast that roof and blast that framing, you can't really quantify the repairs. And here's you may think, well, just do it before you bid it. The cost to bring a contractor in there and rig the tank and blast everything, I mean, that's $30,000-$40,000. So
right.
As engineers, as tank experts, as tank inspectors, we're always trying to base it on past experience. Like, how much corrosion are you seeing? How old is the paint? When was it last painted? What type of paint's up there? If there's lead, usually you're in sort of good shape. But sometimes you guess right, and you're like, okay, I think we just need a few rafter repairs and not replace everything. Other times, you get a tank like we had one, Highland Park for Aqua down in Southeast Pennsylvania, had to replace the whole roof and put on a new aluminum dome. And it's I routinely ask tank inspection firms, hey, how do you get around this? How do you know what you don't know before you blast it? So far, the answer is you don't. It sucks. It sucks. I get it. But I'm always trying to find, okay, is there a different way to do it? So Dan, from your perspective, any comments on, is there any way, and is there anything you've done for customers when it comes to really understanding the metal repairs ahead of time?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with what Mark was talking about, as well as yourself, that it's really hard to figure out how bad a tank might actually be until it's blasted. You can go in there and pressure wash the tank, and you might get rid of some of the paint, but until you actually start to take away a little bit of material and get rid of pack rust, any of the corrosion that builds up, yeah, it's definitely difficult to know the condition of the tank before you blast it. So that's something we deal with a lot. We mainly focus on steel tanks for anybody that doesn't know. But
okay, and I'm curious, Dan, if you had a crystal ball, what would you want to know as a contractor before you got started on a rehab project? What would you most want to know?
yeah, I think I'd have to go kind of with what Mark was saying, but I would love to know how extensive the repairs are going to be. If there's a way you could prepare for it, or like a normal job, you would work on submittals and drawings and kind of have all your materials, everything ordered ahead of time so that you can start the job, come right in, either start welding, start rehabbing, whatever you need to do. So without that, it's kind of like an open-ended question. You start the job, and then until you blast it, you really don't know. So you can't really prepare. You just have to be able to, after either kind of like yesterday, after a meeting, figure out what you got to do, and you better be able to act quickly on it. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, go ahead, H. David.
I think, from an operations side, depending on what kind of plant you're in, you probably have some redundancy built in, as in you have, duplicate tankage and everything else. And with that, as long as the flow permits, you take those tanks out of service occasionally just to clean them up, depending on what the tank is, inspect the mechanics, within there. But the one thing is that, keep your eyes open and follow your gut. If something doesn't look right, then grab a mason hammer and beat the thing, you know what I mean? And, what that's going to reveal is, taking some scaling off, and is this going to be representative throughout the tank? If you see it one place, try another one just for the sake of sampling. Take pictures and then turn around, record that and then relay it to your consultant. Say, listen, we didn't think this was going to be a problem. Turns out it is. And, if you can come down here quick and look at it, that'd be great. But otherwise, here's what we're finding. Kind of give you a little bit of a jump start before, crisis mode sets in.
Yeah. And in this day and age, I mean, everyone's got a camera in their back pocket. So easy to take a few pictures. Oh, ideally, stick your finger next to what you're looking at, because having some scale, my fingers in so many pictures, it helps. It helps to get a sense, is this really big or really small? So I'm curious, Matt, go ahead, Dan.
I just wanted to talk on what David said.
Okay.
So it's funny, the one time it was on a drinking water tank, but I think it's still the same concept. But we got a hammer out. It was actually a chipping hammer for welding, so it's got a sharper point. And we were trying to check the thickness of a roof. And I went to hit it, and it went right through the roof. So it's like,
Doink.
that's a pretty telltale sign that you're going to need to patch something. So.
Were you standing on the roof at that time?
No, we were inside the tank on a lift. So. But,
that could freak you out. You're standing on, you're like, holy shit, what the hell am I standing on?
Yep.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so I just to add to that, there was some talk there about, there are some unknowns when you get into a project like this. And one of the key things that we see on some of these projects is having a really competent team, from the owner to the consultant and also the contractor. That way, when you encounter unknowns and you have a problem, you can work together and come up with a solution that's going to work, and work and fit in the budget, fit in the time frame. If you have an inexperienced contractor, maybe they're not helping you solve that problem. They're not bringing their years of experience to the table, offering the correct products, the correct, like the methodology. So it's just, it's important to have, an experienced team from start to finish.
Yeah. And so many of these people that you see on the panel right now, I mentioned it's my go-to guys when I'm doing a rehab. And because, the team makes all the difference. To just brainstorm, and you don't like, not everyone doesn't have to know the answer, but sometimes just putting your heads together, you can come up with a really amazing solution.
Yeah.
So Matt Boggs, we haven't heard from you yet in your crystal ball. What would you most want to know before you start a wastewater tank rehab?
You know, I was talking to Mark Bubel yesterday about another project, and it kind of just merged into this project. And we kind of had our mini, you know, half an hour talk in terms of, man, I wish we had known this, or I wish we had done this. And one item that actually gets applied to really any project is add things to the bid form that you might want to replace. You know, we said, you think about a tank rehab, all right, pull out the pumps, pull out the, you know, diffusers, pull all the stuff out, fix the tank, then put all the stuff back in. Well, what we found is, you know, a pump that may seemingly had been working, all of a sudden, you know, we need to add a little bit more length to the power cord, and, you know, we bring it to the shop and they say the pump is shot. So we're replacing the pump. The air header, well, the air header is actually, you know, a part of the tank, and there's all these holes. So, you know, let's replace the air header. All right, do we want it galvanized? Do we need stainless? Different pricing. So if you have that stuff in the bid form, even if it looked good and you didn't ever replace it, then the bid form, you don't, you know, it's more like a unit price, and you don't do that work. Instead of saying, hey, listen, our job was X amount, and all of a sudden it's 20, 30, 40, whatever percentage higher, is because all these things that we assumed was okay, because that wasn't really what we're concentrating on. Another item is even talking to the operators. They might have equipment that they're like, man, I don't like that piece of equipment the way it's set up here. And now, since everything was moved out of here, why don't we put that back over here in this different spot? So it kind of ties back to what Mark was saying too, is a little more of that investigation up front, because you really think that you have everything covered when you go out to bid. And, you know, some of those, you know, the crystal ball items or lessons learned, whatever you think that would be impossible to happen, sometimes it does happen.
Now, Matt, you've done other wastewater tanks in the past. So same question I posed to Mark, is this just an unusual sequence of several tanks where there's a bunch of stuff that needs to be replaced? Like, did we go longer than normal before rehabbing these compared to other ones? Or were they built really poorly to begin with, so we're stuck with a really crappy tank and have to do a bunch of upgrades? What's your sense of the past compared to now?
I don't necessarily know if it's the quality of the tank, but, you know, sometimes these package plants are, you know, put in by developers, and they're not trying to build a perfect plant. So they might have equipment that really doesn't have, you know, a shelf life of that long. So, and sometimes it's easier just to replace it instead of trying to put in a, you know, repair something that, you know, might not have that much longer to live.
Yeah. Dale.
Just to go back to what H. David said about, you know, municipal plants usually do have spare tankage and things like that, but a lot of developer built or industrial plants do not have extra tankage. So a lot of times in these projects, the majority of your cost is bypassing that tank and making the treatment plant work while you're rehabbing the tank. That can be a huge cost to bypass that particular unit, tank, whatever. You may have to haul off site, you may have to bring in temporary treatment. You know, there's a lot of planning to doing that. So, you know, I just want to bring up that sometimes the cost of the rehab can be the lesser of the two. The cost to do the tank is less than bypassing that particular tank to do it. So, I mean, there's a lot of creative operators out there. I know a lot of them. So, I mean, to what Matt said also, talk to the operators. Is there a way to do something different so that we don't have to haul off site or don't have to do something like that? And just another thing that Matt said there, you know, you never know what's going to happen. Well, one particular project that most of us here are familiar with, you know, we were hauling waste off site, and then all of a sudden one day it's like, oh my God, they're calling for snow. What are we going to do? If it snows and they can't haul that off site, what are we going to do? And it's all kinds of stuff that you just don't really think of, but you got to look at every angle. So I'll leave it at that.
So what did you do with the snow thing?
Luckily it didn't snow.
Great.
And Mark's shaking his head because everybody's like, "Oh no, what are we gonna
Yeah,
do?"
we were scared.
We
Yeah,
were
because-
so, do you know how lucky we were this past winter? Like no
We were.
snow in Chester County.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all goes back to planning too. And I think originally that, and again, I hate to keep going to back to this particular project, but we were planning to do it in the summer, so we wouldn't have this problem. Well, of course, things never happen the way they're supposed to happen, and it didn't get started till, late fall basically. And it sort of got, as we're trying to get it in line, it sort of passed by until it's like, oh no, they're calling for snow, and we got extremely lucky. Extremely lucky.
We did.
Yeah, anything else to add to that, Mark?
I mean, Dale's absolutely correct. And what I was going to say, I guess, is that sort of to Matt's point was that, there may be, the age of the tank, may obviously have a definite impact. In this particular case, the project that we're sort of talking about here, the tanks were put in probably like around 1996, so maybe about 25 years old or so. And I can tell you that, there was never anything done in terms of rehabbing the tanks over those years. So, I guess the point is that, particularly for tanks that, may have a varied water level and may be more subject to corrosion because of that, probably 25 years is too long to go. Maybe something like half of that, maybe like 10, 12 years, you take the tank down, it might be a better idea. And we spent a lot of money, in particular at this one plant that we rehabbed two SBR tanks and a EQ sludge holding and decant, combination decant sludge holding and EQ tank. And a good portion of it was the replating, patch plating within that center tank that was EQ sludge holding and decant equalization. I don't even want to mention how much money. It's almost to the point if we could have bought a new tank if we were able to actually install it, which would have probably been near impossible. But so it in terms of lessons learned, that might be another one that you gotta find some way to take a tank offline and examine it in detail in that way, because otherwise you're going to be paying for it on the back end.
We've had a couple questions in from our audience, so I want to throw one of them out there. This is from my colleague Mike Sassaman with Entech. How often should a steel tank or a steel floating anaerobic digester cover be pulled and sandblasted and painted for a long life maintenance purpose? I have a guess, but anyone want to field that? Dale?
You have your crystal ball?
Yes.
I don't want to take over here, but it all comes down to the inspection and how good of an inspection you can do and how thorough an inspection you can do. Because I hate to give the answer, it depends. If it was done perfectly and everything was clean when they primed it and painted it and there were no spots on it, which it's unusual. It only takes one spot in a critical area that can affect, especially digester lids, as Mike was asking there. And you got to crawl around in that attic space and take pictures, and nobody really wants to do that, but you need to do it. So my answer is it depends. I hate to give that answer, but that's the one I got. I don't know what everybody else has.
Sorry. And circling back to the photo documentation, I see Brian Killian, our colleague here at Entech, made a suggestion, but is to, while you're taking that picture, provide some sort of size reference within the frame of the picture, whether that be a tape measure or you have a notebook or whatever. But everybody knows that a regular size is 8.5 by 11, as opposed to just putting your finger there. So it gives you an idea of the magnitude. Brian specifically said, put a dollar bill in the frame. And what's interesting is if the damage is less than a dollar bill, your insurance will cover it. No, wait, that's a windshield. Never mind that. It's a windshield.
There you go.
So,
Nice try.
can we edit that out? So, but yeah, so then you have a record of, what's it really look like?
Dan, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, so I'm pulling some info from the drinking water side, but and also the National Fire Protection Code, but they recommend at least an inspection every 5 years of any tank. And I was going to say, like, even say for wastewater tanks, even if it would just be dropping the water level as low as you can, just not even having to take the whole tank offline, just drop it down just enough that you can just get a quick visual. You could maybe try to clean, like pressure wash a little bit, even without taking the tank offline. But basically, if you see that your coating is deteriorated or you start to see steel, you're basically past the point of when you should have already rehabbed it. Because if you have exposed steel, you can start to have corrosion that may lead to extensive repairs. So that's our kind of general consensus is if you do it every 5 years, you should be able to catch something before it becomes a major issue.
Yeah, good point. Matt?
Yeah, I had a quick item, and this is something easy for people to do because I've seen it not be done. And these small package plants that have steel tanks, most if not all the time, they have cathodic protection through those magnesium anode bags, which they basically are brought up to the top, near the top of the tank with just some kind of steel cable. And half the time, those things are clipped. So, the first question is, do you still see that cable? And they go out to the tank and they say, nope, we don't see it. You see like where it's bolted, where it used to connect. So the first thing is, well, that's their first step. Because I had another plant, it was a pure stream plant, and it was new, I'll say relatively new, 7 years old, and the cathodic protection, those magnesium anode bags, I believe were still in place, but I said, it might make sense to even just weigh it, because if it's 10 pounds, and basically that's the sacrificial part, instead of eating steel tank, it eats away these bags. So you should weigh it, and if it started at 10 pounds and now it's at 2 pounds, you gotta, replace those bags. And talking to a contractor, same contractor we've used in the past for this same job we're talking about here for Aqua, they said, it's gonna be easier for me just to replace those bags instead of digging up the old bags and weighing it. So I had them do that. So I'm gonna be in the, routine of having that done every, 5, 7.5 or so years, just so that's something easy to do. It's something that's not difficult.
Yeah, so then you're protecting the outside of the tank that's buried if it's a steel tank. Dale?
I got a question to Matt. Do you think for those bags that they should be specifically located on the as-built drawings so that people know where they are? Okay, just something I'm serious. If it's indicated on your drawings and you get somebody in and they're like, well, I don't know where they're at. I mean, there's a wire there, but where's it go? I don't know. Or the wire's gone, like you said.
Yeah, and no one knows what that wire is for. They think it was for the installation of the tank that, now that the tank's installed, we no longer need it. And especially if it doesn't have stone or, pavement around it, if there's some kind of whatever grass, they're going to clip that thing. It's going to be clipped very, very soon.
Yeah, the weed whacker.
Yep. Yeah, so remind me, what was the recommendation for the tanks recently rehabbed for Aqua? Dan, did you guys do the installation? Did you protect it with PVC pipe or what'd you use?
No, so we actually hydro-excavated holes. It was on the spec, it was 5 foot below the grade of the ground. 5 foot below, and then you backfill and just connect the cable that's connected to the bag to the tank.
Okay. And is that cable protected with something?
It is actually, it's like a regular wire. It's just sheathed, just like any other typical wire.
Okay, because that wiring, I guess, could be put inside a PVC pipe or something to cover it so you're not hitting it with the weed whacker.
Yeah, I know the other thing that you try to do is try to get that wire basically tight to the tank so you're not, that you wouldn't be coming up, I don't know, a few feet away from the tank and running it all on the surface. That wouldn't be very practical.
Yeah, good point. Okay, we have another question. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, or you don't have grass between the tanks. You stone around. You put the weed fabric down, and you just stone around the tanks, and then the weed whacker guys hopefully don't cut your sacrificial anode bags, connector wires.
Okay, another question from our audience. Has anyone encountered the phenomena of concrete deterioration due to alkali silica reactivity? And if so, how was it addressed? So I'll start with you, Joe, since you take care of concrete tank rehabs. What have you seen out there?
Yeah, so ASR is a phenomenon where
Wait, it has a, what is that, an acronym?
Yeah, an acronym, ASR. So it's usually caused by the like the materials used in the concrete. There's certain parts of the country that are more susceptible to ASR because of the materials. So like Pennsylvania is one of them.
Oh,
so it's a chemical reaction basically in the concrete that creates a gel, kind of at like the microscopic level, and that gel expands when it's introduced to moisture like water, and that gel expands and it causes cracking and failure of the concrete. So if you know about the ASR before the tank is built or the structure is built, whatever it is, you can mitigate it. You can try to use, admixtures. You can use a different set of materials. You can try to reduce the cementitious content in the concrete by using things like slag and fly ash. After the fact, it's tough. Basically, with the ASR reaction is caused and continues to happen with moisture. So if you can try to stop the moisture, so whether it's line the inside of the tank or do some coatings or basically isolate the concrete from moisture, if that's possible, depending on this application, that is one way to help slow or, the reaction. If the damage is already done, then, it's probably some going in there and doing some, concrete chipping and patching, try to restore the structure the best you can, and then try to isolate the material.
So you said it is prevalent in Pennsylvania. So I guess there's just the source materials here in Pennsylvania for something in the concrete causes this to happen. Is that right?
The aggregate.
The aggregate. Okay. Yeah. Fascinating. I love having you on my panel. Thank you. Anyone else experience ASR? Okay, excellent. Go ahead, Dale.
Well, I have not, but I have a question for Joe. When you say if you know it happens in that area, how do you know? Or do concrete suppliers test for that? Or how do you know?
Yeah, so they do. So one of the aggregate tests you can do is for, ASR. You can try to identify it in the source materials, in the quarries, and you can run tests too. There are tests that you can run to,
Oh shoot, Joe just froze on us. Oh no. Wait, Joe, you just froze, so we missed the last 10 seconds.
Still froze.
Hopefully
That's what happened to me before.
Well,
poor Mark had to reboot 2 minutes before we started. So
I know.
Good question, Dale. Very good question. And keep in mind, a lot of this, it seems like with the wastewater tanks, maybe there's been little spot repairs done, little things done here and there, tweaks. These full rehabs, a lot of people don't seem to have experience with this. So the more we can share with each other, the more we can learn, the better. So we can, help each other in the future to get through these projects. I know, Dale, you had brought up an interesting, Dale and Mark brought up the idea of weather. How does weather factor into when you do this? And beware of, okay, ideally you don't want to do it during a snowstorm. But also plant flow would factor into scheduling for rehabs as well. So I'm curious, Mark, as far as an owner and operating these tanks, when's the best time to do a tank rehab or wastewater tank rehab?
Obviously in drier weather, to the point of flow, because in our case we did have to pump and haul wastewater when we were doing the it's an SBR plant, a sequencing batch reactor plant. So when we, when we were doing the rehab on the SBRs, one at a time, of course, we take one out of service, and then literally we're pumping and hauling, half the plant flow. So, I mean, one of the things that, obviously would help us is if we can maximize the throughput, for that, the tank that's still in service. And we're actually able to do that pretty effectively. We have online nutrient probes actually deployed in our treatment tanks. So we were actually able to look at the reaction times. In other words, how quickly the ammonia was being oxidized, because that's part of the treatment process. And because we do land apply, we're supposed to maximize the land application at this particular plant. We also do denitrification. So, we were able to look at, it's like, okay, how fast are we oxidizing ammonia, and how fast are we getting rid of the nitrate? How fast are we denitrifying? And in that way, we figured out, like the minimum times that we would need for mixing in the case of getting rid of the nitrate. We figured out we could actually get that done in like 30 minutes. Whereas I think we had that time set to like 60 minutes, didn't need 60 minutes. And in the same way, we were actually able to, optimize the nitrification time. So we went maybe from, it wasn't huge, but it is huge when when you figure out, in terms of the cost per gallon that you're hauling it away. We went from like doing 4 batches or 4 cycles per day, in the one SBR that remained in service, to like 5. So, we added, basically we added like another batch, which is 14,000 gallons, in a batch. I mean, it's not small potatoes. And I mean, to that point, I think it would be helpful if this work could be done in the warm weather. I mean, in a lot of ways it was, generally warm when we were doing the treatment tanks, the reactors, the SBRs. So that really did help. And why the warmer weather? Because the reaction rates, the biological reaction rates, are obviously faster in warm weather than in cold weather. So we're able to use that to our advantage. I mean, and it worked out actually pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Dale.
Just to Mark's point about the weather, and I'm sure Dan can chime in on this too, the coatings that are used to rehab tanks, concrete tanks and or steel tanks, need a certain temperature to cure. So, I mean, you can't, I mean, what they did in this particular application was cover the tank and actually heated the space. So, I mean, and I don't know if you can, in the summer, you don't need to cover it. I don't know that, but that also is important as far as the coatings that are used and things like that. You need certain temperatures for that to take place. So if you get it better in the summertime, that you don't need to heat the space, I mean, that saves you money and so forth and so on. But just, that's important too.
Good point. Yeah, Joe, you're back. Welcome
yeah, we
back.
lost power. It's just like huge storm came through and knocked the power up. I'm sorry for like the dramatic ending of that explanation.
Dale, we'll circle back to Joe for just a moment. So Joe, you were talking about ASR, how we know where or what it's in and how you can test for it. Can you review what was it you were finishing up telling us?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are tests that you can do, prior to the project. So it's always great to, do the concrete, like the mix designs, the trial batch testing, get all those results, and then mitigate the mixes if you have to. So by either using other aggregates, reducing the cementitious content by adding fly ash or slag to it, or use some, ASR reducing admixtures. Those are all things that are great during the planning, submittal, and design phase.
Okay, excellent. While you were gone, we moved on to the topic of weather, how weather affects both plant operation and a good time to take the tanks offline, but also if you need to do repairs, especially coatings, what can you do? Dan, I know you guys are really unusual compared to a lot of painters. Most painters, things are open to the air, they just try to get it done. Maybe they stick a space heater inside a tank with plastic over top, and I don't know, bad fumes build up inside the tank. But you guys have a very special way of doing things when it comes to rehabbing or several projects where you've rehabbed these wastewater tanks. What do you do out there?
Yeah, we're pretty adamant about not gambling with weather because that usually doesn't end well. But yeah, as Dale was saying, the coatings, it's pretty important to have the correct environment, and then even blasting. As soon as you blast your steel, it can bloom, rust bloom, basically just from moisture in the air. So you have to control that environment. So on wastewater side and drinking water, we'll usually either put a containment or some kind of scaffold and completely wrap the tank, whatever we're rehabbing. And then we have dehumidifiers and dust collectors to either get rid of the dust while we're blasting, and dehumidifiers and heaters to deal with the environment and keep it acceptable. Like I know in the middle of winter, it was 85 degrees inside of our containment. And
it was hot. I was sweating.
Yeah, you walk in and you have to take all your layers off. But yeah, you just need that. It helps force cure the paint, and it needs the correct environment.
Also, it's really nice for your workers as well.
Exactly.
I was, a laborer, but I'm inside a nice warm spot.
Well, containments do get very hot in the winter, in the summer though, when you don't want it to. But we actually, on this last tank, we actually set up an air conditioning unit inside the containment, or to pump into the containment. So yeah, our guys have it pretty decent.
That's IK Stoltzfus, and your resume's in. Matt, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I had a couple of items. You're talking about the schedule. Obviously, don't do it during a pandemic. So
why not?
And I've talked to a lot of operators, and because everybody's home, I think the flows to most plants are up, I'd say 25%. Instead of people going to work and everybody's home all the time. So I think of right away in the past, they'd get higher flows during the weekend because everybody would be home. I'm sure that's happening now during the week. And, with all these different cleaning products, that we had issues where, people are sending these different cleaning products down there and would, just kill the bugs. So they ran into that, a few times. It's hard to anticipate all that, obviously. But even working during the warm weather, and I was saying that, if there's a chance of something happening, it usually does. And, August, you start getting the storms rolling around. And we had an empty middle tank, and, that storm hit this area of Chester County really bad. You got like 6 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. And what are we gonna do with this empty tank? Do we let it fill up? Do we try to keep the water out? So, it's nice not working in the wintertime, but even the summertime, you have challenges. And Dan was talking about his containment unit. What I found kind of funny was there was another job going on for Aqua just down the street, maybe 10 minutes away, and they were doing some painting to the tanks over there, but they were not as prepared as IK Stoltzfus in terms of having it, weather protected, and they couldn't do work that day. They can't do the work the next day, and it was, taking forever for that work to be done. And our observer said, you know what? I'll drive you to this other location and show you how you can do it. And they don't want to hear that. So it was nice to have, to be prepared for the different conditions that are out there.
Yeah, good point. H. David, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so long ago, we were actually rehabbing a small aerobic digester, and we had a cold snap come up. You wouldn't have predicted it to happen, during the season. And we actually decided, well, we can cover the tank, and seeing that it's aerobic and was fed by centrifugal blowers, which normally discharge an air temperature of about 120 degrees, turn the blowers on. So we essentially, it was a quick fix to heat the tank, at least, get the surfaces warm enough to coat. But, it was just like I said, a quick fix. I don't know that you would normally do it, but then the advantage of that, of course, they didn't paint while the blowers were on, but if nothing else, you're pumping, fresh air into it.
Mm-hmm. Phenomenal way of using what you have there. A really, really cool way to do it. So I'm curious, a lot of this talk for the painting, containment. We're talking about welded steel tanks. Joe, from your perspective, when it comes to rehabbing these wastewater tanks, for concrete, what are your concerns as far as weather goes? When do you try to do it? When's a bad time to do it?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the similar things, I mean, concrete, it can't freeze, so if you're like, whether using, like patching materials or, you're doing a larger pour, you need to avoid cold temperatures. And if you can't, then you have to either try to heat, same thing with, most coatings now, these newer, coatings that you would use in a wastewater environment, they typically have some type of a restriction on them with, either moisture and, temps, whether it's too hot or like too cold. So yeah, it's always something you have to take into your like plan for a project. It's kind of, like a double-edged sword too, right? I mean, can you do the project any time of the year? Sure, you can. But there are certain times of the year where you're going to have to make other arrangements. So it could be heat. And heat drives cost, right? So if you have a project where you need the heat, it's going to drive the cost up. So, it's trying to balance the owner's needs and operational concerns and also their budget. So, they don't always want to do it during the time of the year where they, may need that tank in service or have higher flows. But then when they find out what the additional cost is to do it over the winter, maybe there's some type of a happy medium so that the cost can stay reasonable, but they also get the operation of that like tank when they need it.
I think just a lot of times is recognizing, oh, we have options. We have options. There's technology now available with the heaters and other ways of doing these where you need to have a good engineer. And I went back to having a good team of people who've done this many times before and evaluate, okay, A, B, or C, which makes the most sense. And sometimes money isn't the only thing. A lot of it is the risk involved and the operators as well. So a lot of factors to consider here. So just a reminder to our audience, this is all about you guys. We could talk about wastewater tank rehabs for hours, but we'd love to get your questions, your comments. What are you concerned about? What are you struggling with out there? So please, bottom center of your screen, there's a Q&A button. Send us in questions. We'd love to keep hearing from them. But in the meantime, I have something very special for our panel.
No.
And I'm going to share my screen right now, and we're going to go with the lightning round. So all my panelists have been trying to figure out, okay, what questions Christina is going to throw at us this time. So I thought this would be fun since we're talking about struggles and what's hard to do. What about an easy one? Have you ever had a wastewater tank rehab go exactly according to plan? And if so, how the hell did you do that? So you all got 30 seconds. I'll start with Matt Boggs. Matt Boggs, have you ever done it? And if so, how'd you do it?
No, that's never happened. I mean, it's not like I have dozens under my belt, but there's always something that comes up. So, if I knew everything that was going to come up, I'd have been very busy before this thing went out to bid, because there's a lot of things that do pop up that you never think of. Like I became very familiar with the township manager where we're working, because if trucks are getting there at 4 a.m. and you have neighbors that are pretty ticked off, they're going to call the township manager. The township manager is going to call me. So I never would have guessed that I would have to talk to the township manager, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, so I mean, there's politics involved that you wouldn't even expect. And I know Russell Yerkes from our firm was doing a phenomenal job dealing with neighbors and stuff out at one of the job sites. So a lot of it, there's a PR component, and either the owner, the engineer, the inspector, someone's got to take the lead on it with these bigger construction projects. Okay, so any projects that went exactly according to plan? Dale Miller.
No. That's why at the beginning I was asking for that crystal ball, because there's always something that's gonna, like you said, you go in the tank, you think you have it all figured out. All the air headers rotted out. We got to replace the air header now. And I mean, that all takes time. It all costs money. It all delays the project. It's not done as soon as you think it's going to be done. So I've never had worked on something that just happened to fall in line like it should. It just
Okay.
is very rare.
Dan with Stoltzfus, how about you? Any that go according to plan?
We have had, there's one that we did about a year ago. It was an EQ tank, and it was above ground. I would say that was probably the smoothest one that we've ever had. But the thing that kind of ended up hurting us in the end was the weather, because with schedule, it didn't start exactly when we wanted. And then we had snow. It was also up north in the Poconos. So we had, everything was freezing. Our paint, we had issues with paint, trying to keep that hot enough because it was a thorough component paint. That actually needs to be the right temperature. So I'd say it was going smooth. And then at the end, then the weather, I mean, we had our containment collapse because it snowed so much. Yeah, it's always something.
Wait, and you're saying that one went according to plan?
Yeah, that was probably our smoothest one.
And that was your best one?
Yeah.
Mark Bubel, how about you?
No, I don't think it, I don't think it ever goes according to plan. I mean, one of the things that I always say, I think Matt's heard it and Dale's heard it before from me, is like, you got to plan things out, measure 3 times, cut once, check and recheck, how you're going to do something. But it just seems like, things happen and it never goes completely how you think it's going to go. I mean, to Dale's point, you're thinking that the air headers are in decent condition, and then you find out, when the tank gets completely dewatered, that in fact they're not. So it's just like it never really goes, according to plan, unfortunately, when you're doing these kind of things. I mean, even that might apply to even just general projects. You run into things underground that you didn't expect. And it always gets done. I mean, if you have a good contractor, they make recommendations. Hey, we could do it this way, or we could do it that way. So, I mean, it really is important to have a good contractor that you can kind of, assist you in terms of solving the problem. And Stoltzfus has been, really good in that way for us.
H. David, how about you? Tell us about all the great projects that went perfectly for you.
There is a list of none. And again, it's just, it's a recurring theme, but again, to speak to the planning, have a plan B. We think this component's going to be okay, but if not, where can we get it in short order? You're trying to at least keep the project on schedule, and the cost is obviously gonna vary at that point. But if you can control anything, it may be the time. So have that plan B, for virtually anything you can think of.
Okay, Joe, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree that they don't all go perfect, but I mean, like the ones that leave a good taste in your mouth, even if they don't go perfect, are the ones where everyone is working together as a team. All that upfront planning, open discussions, being realistic with things like schedule and expectations, and then keeping an open dialogue through the entire project. It's the projects where where you're not pulling all in the same direction. Those are the ones that are the most like grinding, right? But even if everything goes to hell, if everyone's trying to come up with a solution and is being reasonable and being helpful, you can get through it. And in the end, everyone's happy. It's a great project. Everyone's like proud of what happened. So my big thing is, like, whenever I get involved in something, is try to build that team mentality. We don't want to exclude anybody. We all want to be together. We all want to focus on the end goal, which is a good project that the owner's proud of, and that is going to operate and last them a long, long time.
Yeah. Excellent. I think for me, as far as wastewater tank rehabs, the only ones that go exactly according to plan are if you're doing like 3 things and it's $5,000 worth of work. Like something so simple, there's no unknowns. Otherwise, forget it. It's impossible. So any other comments on that question? Or we do have several more questions that came in from our audience. So I'll move on to those. So question, are there any special considerations for rehab of assembled precast concrete tanks as compared to traditional cast-in-place concrete? Joe, does that question make sense to you?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, obviously with concrete, there are many different ways of, assembling a tank. You have, cast in place construction, there's precast construction. So in terms of precast versus conventional cast in place, precast typically has a series of construction joints as the panels are assembled together. So when you're doing rehabilitation, you may have to evaluate what those joints look like, how those joints are waterproofed, and if there's a concern about those joints, address them accordingly. So that could be concrete patching, it could be waterproofing, it could be coating. Also, the way precast tanks are assembled are different. We build a precast pre-stress wire wound tank. So all our precast panels are assembled, and then we wire wind them and then encapsulate that in shotcrete. There's also a post-tension version where you'll have all the pieces come together, and there'll be ductwork cast into those precast sections where you'll pull a strand or a cable to pull everything together. All right. So how if there's any concern that you're having moisture or having any issues with that post-tensioning, you have to address that differently. Also, that's a structural part of that tank. So those are all things you need to investigate.
Excellent. Anyone else have experience with this sort of thing? Okay, go ahead, Dale.
No experience, but I think that was a great question.
Yeah.
And a great answer.
and a very good answer, yes.
Yeah. Okay, another question from our audience. What happens when an annual inspection occurs after a tank rehab and repair deficiencies are found? Oh, wait, let me say that. What happens when an annual inspection occurs after a tank rehab and repair deficiencies are found? I think that's referring to the anniversary inspection, because it'd be like, a year after the tank rehab's done. So I'd love to cover that. First of all, always do an anniversary inspection. Make sure it's in your specs. Make sure the contractor's aware they're responsible for repairs after that 1 year. And ideally, they'll take care of everything. And it's all part of their contract. So Dan, I know when it comes to you guys, you're used to anniversary inspections, and even if it's a couple months, it's not like exactly 12 months. You've been in the business long enough that you'll give them a little leeway, right?
Yeah, definitely. I know for ourselves, I don't know how many times we've come into something that there actually needs to be a repair. Like it sounds like they're more talking about something that was maybe missed during the original base, maybe. But I know we've had plenty of times where you might have a little rust streak somewhere coming from something that was bolted to the tank or something like that. So it's common that we'll come up and do touch-up painting. But if it comes to an actual repair, never had to do anything like that, at least that I've had to deal with. I'm sure in the many years that we've been in business, I'm sure something has happened, but I haven't dealt with it.
Well,
but
you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, I was
you
gonna say,
realize after you rehab the whole tank and something's falling apart, should have hit it with a hammer, right?
Exactly. I was going to say, that's why we try to be pretty thorough when we're in the tank and when it's time to do the repairs. Like we don't try to brush by something and say, hey, well, I don't know, it's not our problem or something like that. But at least try to bring things up as we see.
Yeah, and there's been times where I'm like, oh God, stop hitting it so hard. You're going to find more, you're going to make holes. But I mean, honestly, when we were inspecting some of these tanks, I've got a hammer in my car. I'm pounding on it. And Mark's like, well, don't mess up the tank until we start the repair. Because I don't want to, break anything, but you're trying to get a sense ahead of time what needs to be redone. And it's really, really hard, at least for a steel tank, until it's blasted. So any other comments on repairs after the fact? Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I guess the only thing would be, I mean, you need to incentivize the contractor to return to make those repairs. So make sure you have a pay item for that, or you have some retainage. I think it would be very difficult to get some contractors to return if, just out of the goodness of their heart, So, so I was, just make sure that it's like structured that way.
Do you know what? I think I've been lucky. I have been working with so many good contractors who've been around for so long. They know I'll yell at them if they don't come back. So that's a very, very good point, because especially for public bidding, you never know who's going to get the job. So as an owner, so important to protect yourself in that way, to not only call for the first anniversary inspection, but also maybe hold a little retainage in case any repairs are needed. Any other comments on that question? Okay, here's another question from our audience. Can ASR deterioration occur on the surface of concrete where very hard, high alkalinity wastewater is present? So Joe, I'll reach out to you again since you've got the good concrete experience. Do you have any sense of that, that question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's so. I guess it's possible, right? So I mean, really, the ASR happens at like the molecular. I mean, down at like the microscopic level, inside, like the matrix of that like concrete. Surface, if there's a chance that maybe they're seeing some surface erosion caused by, say, H2S gas or things like that, maybe in the airspace of, at the waterline or above. Concrete can be very sensitive to H2S without, a protective coating installed or some other type of means to protect it. So, I mean, the ASR could magnify itself to cause surface issues. You're going to get cracking and spalling. Maybe that's what they're seeing. But if it's surface only and it's in a wastewater environment, especially above the water line, it could be, H2S gas.
Okay. But particularly, I guess, if there's a cover over it, right, holding that gas in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, yes, it can. I mean, if it is a very, I guess, if there's a lot of it in the waste stream anyway, you may get, some like surface issues, right, like right at the water line anyway, even if it isn't covered.
Okay. Another question from our audience: has anyone noted increased corrosion of concrete tanks where biological nutrient removal occurs? So I'll throw that up to you, Joe, again. I don't know if you get into this sort of detail and the process part and knowing what happens with the tanks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about process. I know some, but not a ton. So I guess that one is a new one on me. I guess I don't know that I've seen that before. Okay.
Mark, you've got experience?
Well, I think maybe where the questioner was coming from was, I mean, with a nutrient removal type process, I mean, you're going to have, anoxic zones or possibly anaerobic zones. And for, the condition that we have, like inside of a sewer system, I mean, it's the desulfibriobacteria, I believe, that causes the generation of the sulfuric acid, basically, on the crown of the sewer. So it's kind of like what everybody learns, in basics in terms of, engineering school, learning about this sort of thing and sewer corrosion and whatnot. But I mean, I guess in theory that could occur, within an anoxic zone where it might be predisposed to, have that. I'm not sure if there'd be desulfibriobacteria, but I mean, in theory, it's possible that, the conditions might be present that perhaps like right at the water line, there might be a greater predisposition. But I don't think, in terms of our tankage, we have a number of plants that we have a lot of land application plants. So, we do have a lot of plants that do, do nutrient reduction. I don't know that we've really seen, a difference in terms of enhanced corrosion in those facilities as compared to, other ones that are just nitrifying.
Okay, excellent. Any other comments on that? Yeah, H. David?
So, going back to Eric's first question regarding, have we ever seen that corrosion occur in an alkaline environment? And I think, from what limited experience I had, we had an industrial client out in the Pittsburgh area where the municipality was coming back to them saying your discharge is eroding our manholes. So clearly, maybe an H2S environment type thing. But what we found, with the help of, Joe in our office, we decided they had pH adjustment available on their site. So we kind of broke out our LSI calculators and said if we raise the pH of the discharge a little bit, it would reduce the corrosion, and it actually did, you know, slow it down. Now, I'm not exactly sure what Eric's point was. Like, you know, he probably had a situation where it was still occurring, even if you raised the pH of the discharge or the fluid or whatever. So, you know, I don't know, you know, what solutions there are beyond that. They ultimately did come in and do some coating of all the structures that were affected, but
Mhm.
it was a quick fix since they had the equipment in place.
Interesting. Okay. Do you know what? I'm going to poll the audience for a moment. One thing we're always curious about here at Entech is future roundtables. We love doing these, and we'd love to get your input as to what you'd like to see us do in the future on the wastewater side. So I'm going to launch a poll right now. And the question is, what are you interested in for future roundtables? And you can select as many as you like. So one that we are planning on doing is show me the money, finding funding for your projects. So I'm excited about that one. And Natalie and Tori from our office will be taking the lead on that one, along with a few other, we're still pulling the team together. So actually, if you're able to get money really easily, join our panel. We'd love to hear, how do you do that? One I'm excited about is have a beer with an engineer. What I'd tell my 21-year-old self. So at Entech, we've got a bunch of, I don't say older guys, seasoned veterans, seasoned veterans who've been through it all. And I mean, listening to their stories and their wisdom is always so much fun and so educational. And it makes you feel a little bit better that, okay, if they went through it and look how successful they are now, there's hope for me. And actually, Mark Bubel, if you enjoy yourself today, I'd love to have you back on that panel.
I think I'm too young.
Well played.
No,
Wait, I'm like, shoot, I just insulted my client. Another second or two to fill in what roundtables you'd like to see. And I will end the polling, and let's look at these results. Share the results. Okay, so it looks like the most popular answer, 58% of the people like the ABCs of wastewater treatment operations. So that's cool. Also highly ranked was the pumping station design. Actually, that's a talk that Chris Hannum in our office has given many times at Pennsylvania Rural, and it was really, really well received, and you can actually download it from our website. Oh, and have a beer with an engineer. And just so you know, I do plan on having a beer when I'm moderating that session. So work from home that day if you want to tune in for that. We'll be having that one right before Christmas time. Okay, so thank you so much to my audience for sharing your experience, or I'm sorry, sharing what you'd like to see us talk about in the future. I see we're coming up on 3:12, so a few more minutes. One more question I'd like to pose to our panel, and it came up in regards to these package plants where things are, you know, done just barely to meet requirements versus these plants where you put in duplicity. So question, if you're building a new plant or upgrading an existing plant, should you plan to have duplicity? Should there be extra storage or other ways of running the plant? So knowing you're going to have to do maintenance at some point. Yeah, go ahead, Dale.
you're never going to find an operator that says, no, I don't want another tank. Because
oh, really? They love tanks?
Well, absolutely. You know, because if you got a problem with this one, you can put it over there. If you don't have another one, you're SOL. And anybody that operates treatment plants is giddy when you have an empty tank sitting over there, because, you know, something can always happen. And if it happens, it's like, well, you know, I don't have to call the township manager to make sure I can haul waste. I can just pump it over there and then fix it and then pump it back. And it makes life so much easier for everyone. I mean, I was very fortunate where I worked for a long time. We had extra tanks. So when something happened, you put them in service. When they were done, you cleaned them out. But if you don't have that option, it makes life a little bit more on the edge. So like I said, my comment is you're not going to find an operator that says no to another tank. But again, it all comes down to money.
But is it worth that extra cost to, is it, well, yeah, because you got to design it, you got to build it, then you've got to maintain it as well. So is it really worth it to have a tank just sitting there?
That's an extremely good question, but it depends on who you're asking. If you're asking the township manager, you're going to say, absolutely not. We're not spending the money for that tank. You ask the operator, absolutely, I need that tank. I got to have it. So it becomes an issue of, you know, I guess maybe the operator explaining to the township manager or whoever that, you know, if I don't have that tank and something goes wrong, it's going to cost us X amount of dollars to haul whatever for how long, you know. So that, I mean, it
Good
comes
point,
down to
Mark.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Dale. I mean, having redundancy, you know, in respect, I mean, DEP, PA DEP, in terms of treatment plants, anything over 50,000 gallons per day, you have to have 2 trains, you know, that below that, you know, you can get by with 1 train, which even at 25,000 gallons a day, I think there's benefit in having, you know, two trains. So in terms of redundancy, I mean, you should have that, you know, throughout the plant, and that, you know, applies for tanks, pumps, everything pretty much across the board. And it's all about basically protecting your effluent quality and your NPDES permit compliance. So I mean, that's why it's really important, I think, to, you know, to have that kind of redundancy across the board. And in terms of like sludge holding tanks, you know, a lot of, you know, package plant vendors would you know, tell you that, you know, you only need one, you know, that's a couple thousand gallons. And, you know, I've always been of the perspective that 20% of the plant permitted capacity minimum is the volume of sludge holding that you need. And to Dale's point, I mean, the more volume you have, the, you know, the better off you are and the happier the operators are going to be, because someday you're going to use it.
Excellent. Okay, well, I see we're up somehow magically 75 minutes have passed. So I want to let our audience know if you guys are interested in future roundtables. We've got many that we are planning. 2 of them, or actually no, the first one up there, October 22nd, that one you can register for through our website. So Trusted Advisor or Hired Gun, how boards can work best with their engineer. 4 more I'm in the midst of planning, and definitely November 5th, we'll be looking at managing non-revenue water, best practices, and Pat Burke from our office has a lead on that one. Show Me the Money, finding funding for your projects, I mentioned that one. More I&I, we've already done 2, so this will be our 3rd I&I talk, which are very, very popular, and then the beer with an engineer, the old timer share, I'd tell my 21-year-old self. So if you want to check out our website, there you can register for these roundtables and also check out videos. If you missed any of the past ones, as the videos become available, we put them up there as well as on our YouTube channel. So that's entecheng.com, and at the bottom right of the webpage, look for the roundtable recast. So a huge, huge thank you to my panel. You guys are amazing. You're my dream team. So big thank you from me to Matt Boggs, H. David Miller, Dale Miller, all from Entech. Huge thank you to our friends, Mark Bubel with Aqua, Daniel Goldhahn with IK Stoltzfus, and Joe Pappo. Your knowledge was phenomenal to learn from all of you guys today. And to our participants out there, if you're interested in a PDH certificate or a wastewater operator, a CEH, please send me an email and I'll make sure I get that to you. So thank you guys so much. So much fun learning from you. And I always say, magical things happen when you bring together passionate people. And you guys are clearly passionate about wastewater tanks. And I love it because I am too. So thank you to our audience. Thank you to my panel. And we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.